Neil, how are you, sir?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, very good. I'm out of people who seem to be excited about the film, so that's nice,
It is fantastic. What a thriller. What a ride it is, man. I got to tell you, I absolutely loved it. It kept me watching every single second, every single frame. I was fully invested into this film. First question I have for you though is what attracted you to Bull, and what theme stood out to you the most for the film?
Well, what attracted me was to work with Paul Andrew Williams, who directed it. We've been threatening to work together for years and years, and I'd done a pop video with him a few years ago, and it wasn't enough. We just did a day, and I've known him since London to Brighton time, actually, when his first film came out, and I loved that in a way. That sort of subverted genre and rooted the chase movie in something that was almost like social realism. And that he was coming back to work in a similar way, but with a revenge movie was an exciting prospect. And then, yeah, so I would have almost done anything he put through the door, frankly. But, it didn't hurt. It's great. You finally, you always hope, I think, as a young actor, that you're going to end up playing the guy who's on a trail of vengeance. And most actors would be lying if they said that wasn't something they hoped to be doing one day. I've done versions of that in the past, but not certainly in its absolute rawest form like it is here.
What a fantastic role Bull is too, and we really get to see, man, it's crazy how cold and calculated he is, but we really get to build up to that like raging Bull, no pun intended, that we kind of get throughout the course of the film. So tell me a little bit about Bull, just in general.
The character or the movie, the character. Yeah, well, I think he's a while he appears to be this unstoppable force, I think he's quite a damaged individual, actually, someone who's come up in an environment and in a place that's sort of outside the law at the end of the tracks, where a character like Norm, that kind of, dark narcissists really flourish, where they can exercise control and coercion over everyone in their circle. And he's ended up working for this guy and being, with his daughter and having him as a grandfather to his son, and just absolutely tied into this darkness and having probably any skills and talents and abilities and potential that he might have had really kind of curtailed and muted by the combination of being semi-raised by this guy and also, coming from that sort of place and that sort of area, where there hasn't really been anyone to look after him. And now, through having a child himself, he sees the opportunity to break that cycle and to be an effective and decent father. And when that's jeopardized, which it is like beyond jeopardized, actually significantly almost broken up, it sort of lights a primal rage in him, which is the springboard of his vengeance.
Right. I mean, hey, this is a revenge thriller at its best. Bull is such a calculated character, and there's times where I find myself cheering for Bull, but then you see his backstory and you're like, oh, like, you see what the character is made of. Now, I got to ask you, what did you want to bring to the character of Bull that wasn't necessarily on the page?
Well, I think actually the one thing that and I won't go into it in too much detail, because I think Paul, it was something where me and Paul diverged somewhat, was really quite how bleak the backstory with Norm might have been. And Norm has gathered not just Paul, but all of these sort of younger men together who are all servants to him, really, and what might have tied them all to him quite so closely, and that maybe Bull had been the victim of Norm in more ways than we explore in the backstory. And therefore, as he was, as he's coming after him, it's going back further even than what we see in the film. That was always my idea of it. And I always thought as well that the more I had sympathy for Bull and saw the violent acts that he committed as really being almost outside of his understanding,
Right.
of an empathy that has been removed from him from childhood, that might mean an audience could get on board with him, like exactly in the way that you describe, despite the darkness of that stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, you talked a little bit earlier about your director, Paul Andrew Williams. Can you talk? He wrote and directed this film. Can you talk to me about having him as a writer and director help inform your character? And can you just talk to me a little bit about the collaboration process working with Paul?
Yeah, well, Paul's the best kind of director, in that you really feel his trust in you. He doesn't pretend like he has all the answers. He's really interested in what you bring to it and in leaning into your choices rather than being prescriptive, despite the fact that he's created it, he's written it and directed it. He's not saying, no, it's not that, it's this. He's like, okay, if that's your idea, let's go with that. So it is collaboration. It's not that he has something inside his head and you're not going to be able to shift that. What he's interested in is what you bring to it. I mean, I've just directed and written my first film, and I really tried to do the same thing, to be surprised by what the actors do, and then leaning into it, rolling with it, using that, making that the thing that develops it beyond what your expectations of the work are. And that's what Paul does. And he can come off as being, in a very amusing way, quite Eeyore-ish and like cynical about, he sort of plays it like he hasn't really thought about any of this stuff. But he has, that's just his way actually of putting you at ease.
Right. It's just his process.
Yeah. And that he's not like, he's not forcing you to carry all the weight of his expectations, because he sort of plays it as though he doesn't really have any. And, I don't know what it's about. And I don't know. I've not thought about all that. And he has, but it's a really, it brings a sense of fun to the set, which is really nice and handy and has levity to it. But it also, is a way maybe of you not feeling the weight of expectation, which actually must be there.
Right. Just following up on that a little bit, another person that is stone cold in this film and another brilliant performance alongside yourself is David Hayman, who plays Norm. Can you talk to me about working with David and what he brought to the role of Norm that may have surprised you?
Yeah, I mean, I love David Hayman anyway. I'd seen him, going all the way back to Sense of Freedom. I loved The Long Good Friday, and David Mackenzie, who directed that film, his follow-up to that was Sense of Freedom. And I thought, I'd seen David from then, and the film that he directed, Silent Scream, years ago. I think I overwhelmed him a little bit on the first day by knowing quite so much about his career. And, I knew he'd worked with 784, this theatre company, and just what he did, which was brilliant. And I don't know if it was unexpected or not, but, David doesn't turn up and start, playing the heavy in a really two-dimensional way. He knew almost to be on the back foot with it. Right. But the dialogue and the acts of violence did a lot of the work for him. So he could give it a kind of a coldness and almost a distance on everyone. And like the character was observing rather than always propelling each moment,
Right.
Which was a great choice and really works, so the scenes where we're opposite each other, he let me do a lot of the growling, if you like, and right. the work, and he just he was almost like he was in a warm bath with that part, it was great to see. He's a fantastic actor.
Bull is somebody you do not want to mess with. I mean, I feel like it is one of the most intimidating characters I've seen in this year. Another thing, too, that really caught me off guard is that this isn't a horror movie by any means, but it definitely has some horror sensibilities, from the practical effects to the goriness a little bit. Can you talk to me a little bit about what Paul Andrew Williams' directing style added to Bull? And also, you guys shot this during the pandemic, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was a strange one, because it was really in the thick of the pandemic, and we all felt quite fortunate that we were able to go to work and to be around other people and to have interaction and conversation when so many people were locked in at home. And also, strangely, I was talking about this earlier today with during another interview, but the you know, weirdly for filming, because the public weren't around, it made some locations that would have been really tricky normally, people diving in front of the camera and whatever, actually quite interesting. And it meant that Paul, it gave every scene, wherever we were, every location, a remoteness, which really lends itself to the film. It feels cut off. Yeah. And that was because during the pandemic, everywhere was cut off, you know? So even like the fairground, which would have probably been quite busy and packed if we'd have been shooting in a normal weekend, was just us and whatever supporting artists they managed to get up to the location. So even that feels abandoned, you know, and like an isolated spot, which Paul is so responsive to location and responsive to, in the same way as I say to the actors, like what you bring is what he leans into. He does the same thing for location. He does the same thing for atmosphere. He does the same thing, you know, for each scene and each sequence. He's just like, right, what have I got? Okay, let's move towards it, you know? So that's really effective for that.
Yeah, that fair scene when you were on that spinning thing. Oh boy, what an intense scene that was. Fantastic, man. Fantastic.
Oh yeah, it's great. I mean, the way that's shot is brilliant, you know, and just the decision to sort of clamp that camera inside the carriage so that the spinning, and we were spinning at full speed, you know, that ride was going as it would, you know, for the public. So it was
true
great.
Professionals, man. True professionals. You guys stayed in the scene, and I had to go back and watch that scene a few times because I was getting discombobulated, much like your co-star probably was in the scene as well. But like, it was intense. That intensity stayed throughout, man. Neil, fantastic job in this film. I absolutely love it. Thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for your enthusiasm, mate. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Hey, Bull is a fantastic film. I hope everybody goes to see it this Friday, man. Amazing job. Thank you so much, Neil.
Cheers, mate.